Hey Traders Point kids, my name is John and I'm here at Lions Park on the north side of Indy, just walking some of the trails. Maybe you've been to this park before. This month, we're focusing on the fact that God created our beautiful world. So being in nature is a great way to remember that. When I'm alone in the woods, I like to sketch in my nature journal. You know, I really have so much to be thankful for. And sometimes I'll write down some of the things I'm thankful for, like my family, my friends, the fresh air, and my good health. And I just love talking about what matters most. And today, it's all about how God is omnipresent. That means He is everywhere at the same time. So whether I'm in my bed, at church, here at the park, I can talk to God, and God hears me. When it comes to creation, most people think that God only talks about it at the beginning of the Bible in Genesis. But the truth is, God talks about it all over the Bible. The Bible starts with a history book that tells us the story of the nation of Israel, God's chosen people. Then there are the poetry books of Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Songs. And they're all full of references to God as creator. For example, Psalm 24 starts with, "The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it. The world and all its people belong to Him. For He laid the earth's foundation on the seas and built it on the ocean depths." This is a good one. Proverbs 3:19 says, "By wisdom the Lord founded the earth. By understanding He created the heavens." Oh, this is a great one. I love this. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 29 says, "God created people to be virtuous, but they have each turned to follow their own downward path." But today we're going to focus on the book of Job. In it, we learn about the omnipresence of God at creation, and we discover how that truth can help us when life gets tough. You know, it's easy to be thankful when things are good, right? But it's a lot harder when things are bad. Like when I get mosquito bites or poison ivy and I get all itchy, or when I lose my pencil on the path and I can't draw anything. Job was a guy who had a super bad day. And one day he lost everything, and I mean everything. And one day his animals were stolen by raiders, a fire burned all of his property and killed his servants, and then worst of all, there was a huge storm and it blew down his son's home. All 10 of his children were inside, and none of them survived. Now Job had some questions. He loved God, but he wanted to know why all those bad things happened. I ask God why all the time. Like, why do ticks and mosquitoes exist? Job asked his questions to God too. And guess what? God answered, but not the way that Job would have thought. God answered by asking Job some questions of his own. Rather than just reading from the Bible what God said, I'll show you. God asked, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you know so much. Who determined its dimension and stretched out the surveying line? Who makes the rain fall on barren land in a desert where no one lives? Who sends rain to satisfy the parched ground and make the tender grass spring up? Can you stalk the prey for a lioness and satisfy the young lion's appetites as they lie in their dens or crouch in the thicket? Have you given the horse its strength or clothed its neck with a flowing mane? Did you give it the ability to leap like a locust? Its majestic snorting is terrifying. Is it your wisdom that makes the hawk soar and spread its wings toward the south? Is it at your command that the eagle rises to the heights and make its nest?" So after God asked all those questions and more, Job realized that God was very powerful. And Job was humbled and said, "I will cover my mouth with my hand, and I have nothing more to say." His trust in God grew, and he was never the same. God's answers to Job don't really answer my why question. Sometimes when I struggle with questions while reading the Bible, I call a friend who knows more than I do. So let's do that now. Let's call Jack. Hey Jack, how's it going?
Hey, great, John. Good to hear from you. What's up?
I was just talking to my Traders Point friends about Job's life, and I have 2 follow-up questions. Do you got a second to talk?
You bet. Let's go.
Well, for starters, God never answered why Job had to go through all those struggles. Why is that?
That's That's a good question. We know from the beginning of the book that it was all a plot of Satan to get Job to curse God. Satan said that Job only loved God because of God's blessings.
What? That's terrible.
Yeah, but Job never did curse God.
Well, did God tell Job that about Satan and what was going on behind the scenes?
Not that we know of. The book of Job helps us understand how we can view God when we are going through hard times of our own. Usually, we won't be able to understand why things happen, but if we look at who God is, we can be at peace knowing He's working everything for our good.
Yeah, so we shouldn't always focus on why it happens, but we should focus on who God is.
That's right, exactly. Who created the entire world? Who's on the throne in heaven? Who loves us? Who is this amazing God? And when we realize He's a God who loves us and cares for us and never leaves us, we can be comforted like Job was, even when life is hard.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, ultimately, we can always look to Jesus, God's Son, to understand God's love. Since God gave us His very best by giving us Jesus, and since He took care of our biggest problem of sin by dying on the cross, and since He was powerful enough to come back to life, that's a God I can trust and follow, no matter how hard life gets.
Yeah, well said. Well, I do have a follow-up question.
Sure.
God mentions
Sure.
so many different things like lions and hawks and horses and deserts, and He says He created them and is helping all of them. How can God be everywhere at once?
Now that's an easier question, and if you recall our What Matters Most, you'll have the answer. It's because God is omnipresent. That means He is all places at all times. God isn't trapped by time and space like we are. Remember, God created time and space, so He's outside of it.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah, so God can be everywhere at once. Omnipresent. Omni means all, so it means all present. Present everywhere at once.
Omnipresent. Right, like how I can talk to God no matter where I am, and He hears me. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, thanks for your help.
Hey, anytime, John.
We'll check in with you again, I'm sure. Bye.
Horses are amazing. I was reminded of them in that passage from Job. God asked, "Do you know why horses are so strong?" Well, it's because of how God designed them. For years, scientists didn't understand why horses had holes in their shins, in their metacarpals. They assumed it was a flaw. It seemed like a hole in the shin is a bad idea, right? I wouldn't want one. We've since learned that the hole has tissues that take the stress away from the bone and spread it to other areas, so that the bone is actually stronger because of it. In fact, engineers are now looking into the model of a horse's shin in order to design stronger ships and airplanes. And to think, we used to think that a hole in the shin was a mistake, but it's actually helping modern day engineers. This shows how creative and intelligent God is. God asked Job, "Do you know why the horse is so strong?" And it took us over 4,000 years to figure it out. Did our omnipresent God create the world? Yes, He did. And every day we are still learning how fascinating His creation is. So as I leave today, remember to be thankful for all that God created. And mostly, I'm thankful He created you.